Welcome everybody to the K&B Music Den. As always, I'm Brad. And you, sir?
Everybody's friend, Keith.
Everybody's buddy. There he is. What are we doing today, Keith?
Well, sir, our loyal subscribers and viewers know that we recently put out a video with a general overview of all of the new Ryan Adams albums. There were 5 in total, if you count Prisoners Live, which we talked about briefly.
Sure.
And then the 4 new albums of all new material. There's Heatwave, 1985, Star Sign, Sword and Stone. So what we decided to do is not just leave it at that. We're going to do a more in-depth review of each album. And by doing that, we're also going to see if our initial ranking order may change from what we said on that first video as far as ranking these in our order of preference and all that. So yeah, here we are. We're going alphabetically like we did in the first video. So Heatwave is on the plate, buddy.
Yeah, it is. Now, I'm curious, after some time here, we've dove into just this one album, listened to
Yeah.
it all week long. Last time we talked about this, you stated this was the album you were having the hardest time getting into. Have you gotten into this album more, being saturated in it for a little bit longer, or are you still having some troubles with it?
As I marinated in it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I gotta tell you, I'm still having some troubles,
Okay.
but um it will definitely not be ranked at number 4 any longer.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a little scary. Which one's going to be for number 4? If this was still got some problems for you.
Right.
Now, your initial concerns with the album were some of the mixing and production issues you were concerned about.
Yeah.
Is that still the same issue that you're harkening back to now, or?
Unfortunately, yes. And my
Okay.
my gripe is that these are things that would be very, very easy to fix.
Okay.
So I know you had mentioned, well, it's a rock album, it's an edgy rock album, borderline punk, some of it.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be perfect, and I get that. But for me, Ryan Adams is such an elite musician, songwriter, studio rat, all of it, vocalist. So when you're that elite and talented at what you do, I think there's what we always talk about, the purposeful dissonance.
Mm-hmm.
But some of this to me is just straight up dissonance. It's not purposeful.
Okay.
It just happened. Now, don't get me wrong. I know the man is a genius, and I know anything that I'm saying would not be a surprise to him as far as like, yeah, I know the vocals are low in the verses of Mercy. I wanted it that way. But
Yeah.
to me it doesn't make sense because I can barely understand what he's singing, and then it comes in with the chorus so loud, and there's such a noticeable difference in the volume between the verse and the chorus. If it were very, very slight, I wouldn't even probably notice it, but it's
Sure.
noticeable. And I saw even one of our people comment, oh no, I'm sorry, one of the super fans in the Facebook group, or no, I'm sorry, it was a comment on our video from the last one when I mentioned
Mm-hmm.
this, said, yeah, I hear that too, but I love the album. And that's kind of where I stand. I hear these little, look, like I say, warts and all. But that being said, after living with it for a week and really diving in, I mean, this is such a great listen. I mean, it's such a
It
great
is.
listen. It rocks. It really rocks, and the songwriting is as always fantastic.
I agree. I mean, I listened to it on fresh ears this time, trying to say, to myself, do I have an issue with the production? Am I having trouble or concerns with it? I don't as much as you do, I don't think.
Okay,
For me now, again, I'm someone who's been listening to a lot more like, shoegaze, alternative rock, some indie type stuff, where the vocals do get mixed down a little bit into the mix, and the music kind of becomes the superstar of the album. And the lyrics and the music, and I mean, and the vocals are still there, but it's cut down the mix a little bit.
yeah,
Unlike where a singer songwriter album, you want it at the forefront because you're paying attention to all the words. I felt like this one didn't need to be mixed as high as you would mix like a Star Sign or Gold, where
true.
you're looking for those lyrics. And this is kind of, you wanted to sound, to me, it sounds like you're in a CBGBs with a bad sound guy who didn't know how to make the mix sound right. And he's just playing. You're having a hard time hearing the vocals, but it sounds fucking great. That's kind of what I got from this.
That's fair. And what I will say, in his defense, and leaning more towards what you're saying now,
Mhm.
you know, I, I I get it as far as it's not meant to be perfect.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard for me to separate my, hey, I'm just enjoying listening to an album and my experiences that I've had, on a very small scale, obviously, but, as a songwriter and a producer in studios and different things that I've worked on. So to me, it's like hard to turn that part of my brain off. But when I do, I enjoy it more.
Hmm.
And like I said, I was, really honestly not even fully through the first fresh listen on this fully dive in week of this when I already knew, okay, this is not staying at number 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, was there any songs that were major highlights to you on this one?
Well, part of what I wrote down here in my notes is that it, it's not as much of a side A album as I thought it was initially
Okay.
because it really is strong throughout. But that being said, I mean, those first handful of songs are just bam, bam, bam. I mean, 10 out of 10, man. Just and maybe some folks listen to this and say, well, how are you sitting there saying it's 10 out of 10 where you're saying you have mix issues and this and that? Yeah. Okay, maybe 9.5. Um, but I really, yeah, I really, changed my mind as far as it being more of an A side album. We
Mhm.
always talk about A side, B side. Is it strong throughout? For you, is it a strong throughout? Is it more of an A side album?
It leans a little A side to me. Now, it doesn't
Sure.
mean the B side's bad, but
Yeah.
side A is pretty solid. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you said with the mixing, everybody hears the very first line of this album though. What's the very first line he says? Do you remember?
Can I take the fucking pressure? Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, when you start an album off that way,
yeah. Yeah.
and then Lies and Mercy. Now, the one track I don't love on the first half is Heatwave, which
Really?
is the title of the album, which
Yeah.
usually means they think it's pretty strong, I would imagine. But Heatwave is my least favorite. I noticed on this one, the songs that leaned 3.5 minutes and over were the ones I tended to not listen to as much or like as heavily as some of the shorter tracks, which is
Yeah.
odd to me. But Heatwave definitely was my first half of the album. Like little, I don't. It's probably me. Like you said, it's a me,
Yeah.
not a Ryan thing. But
Yeah.
that's the one I'm having a hard time grip onto. But yeah, I mean, you got tracks like "Why," "I'm Sorry,"
Oh.
fantastic. Now, what did you think of the song "Supernatural"?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm remembering that one as you say it. I like it. It's a bit different than those first several in a row. Um, but I think the lyrics are good. It has a cool kind of groove to it. I think it's a little groovier than the just the bam, bam, bam of the beginning of the
Now,
album, which I love.
his vocals seem to go a little crazy to me at some points during this.
Well, yeah, that's true.
And do you think that's intentional? Like, or it sounded a little. I don't know. I was like, that's. It sounded like Ryan off the rails there for a little bit on the vocal parts.
Yeah.
I'm not used to it sounding, but
And you're bringing up something that is kind of what I'm hearing when I listen to this album, where it's like, was it, hey, I'm just gonna sing it once and fuck it,
yeah,
rough around the edges by design, or is it that there's not that other person to say, hey man,
yeah.
pretty good, sing it again, like that's what a producer does.
Oh yeah,
um
yeah,
so when you're producing yourself, now, there are not that many people going strong today that I think are qualified to produce themselves. He is definitely one of them.
oh, absolutely is.
Um,
Yes.
but things may slip through the cracks. And let me bring this up because this has bothered me for a long time. And I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about this. The song that's from the album, but it's also the title track. The song Romeo and Juliet?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Of course. Beautiful song, right?
Yes.
So the very last verse, he sings Romeo, blah, 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 blah. But he starts to accidentally sing Juliet and then changes it. Have you noticed that?
I didn't. I don't know if I noticed it. Noticed it. No.
Yeah, it's like the music comes in, then he goes, Romeo, like, and it's obvious, like,
Okay.
and that's a great example to me. Like, okay, this is posterity. This is for forever. This is getting pressed on vinyl, which I ordered and I'm waiting for patiently, Ryan,
Yeah.
patiently. But how could you not hear that before you put the final mix and master down of this album and say it's done? Like, that's what some of these things on this album to me that are like, again, perfection, perfect is boring. I've talked about that quote
Hmm.
before. producers and engineers that I've worked with in the
Yep.
past. Perfect is boring, and I agree. I get that. Um, but again, going back to the purposeful dissonance and then
Yeah.
the just dissonance. um, Now, again, the man is a tremendous talent. So if excuse me, I'm sorry, whatever way he's singing
Yeah.
is that's what he meant. I mean, he obviously listened to this song before he
Oh, he
said it
did.
was
Yeah.
done. But it does make you scratch your head a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, and like you said with the Romeo and Juliet thing, like with the vocal left in there, the guy's a nutty perfectionist. You know, he goes back through and through and through all this music. So I'm sure he heard it. I'm sure if you mentioned that to him, he wouldn't go, "What? I did." So he chose to leave it in. You know what I mean? This
Yes,
kind of goes
yes.
back to the whole. I think sometimes he just goes and says, "Fuck it, let's leave it in," and I like that. I tend to like that a little bit because, like you said, perfection's boring. Um,
Yeah.
so it does
Well,
add a little bit of charm to it.
yeah, I have mixed feelings about things like that, especially the Romeo and Juliet example I gave you. Now there's there's what they call a happy accident, and
Yeah,
I get that. Like when we talked about country feedback in Discnology, where he sings these clothes and then he stops and he goes, "These
yeah,
clothes don't fit us right." That was an accident because it was a one-time supposed to be a scratch take.
yeah.
He just did the whole, and they were just like, there was something magical about that entire take. Even though he stopped and started, it just works for in some weird way.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is very different than singing Romeo. Like
Yeah,
to me, that's like, dude, mute the track. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
but that's just me. That's just me. But
yeah,
hey, I want to ask you a question. We're gonna be
yeah,
digging more into this, of course. But I remember in the initial video that we did when we talked about Heatwave, it seemed to me like you said this is what you wanted the album Rock and Roll to be. Can
yeah.
you
I mean,
can you explain that a little more? And I'm gonna grab a quick sip of water, but talk to the folks. And what did you
oh,
mean by
I gave you the COVID. I gave you the
no,
sickness.
no, no. I don't
Oh
want it
man,
again. I don't want it again.
yeah.
But what did you mean by that with rock and roll?
Yeah, what I meant by that in general is rock and roll. Ryan Adams definitely, as a musician, leans towards singer songwriter, but I would say his fandom is with metal, hard rock. If you went through his vinyl collection, it's heavy music.
Yes.
He's done work as the Finger with Jesse Malin and a couple guys.
Yeah, I have that.
Definitely into more of the punk scene. So rock and roll was a rock album that still felt very polished, still felt very clean, still sounded very radio friendly. Heatwave, I don't see being a very radio friendly type album because it does have a little bit more rawness to it. The production's not as clean. It's not candy. This isn't like a hard candy album where it's easy to digest, very made for that reason. So this is kind of, in my opinion, what he would have wanted a rock and roll to sound like, where it's more
Mm,
towards the grimy. He just walked out of a backstage, just did a line off off the bathroom, and he's gonna go up
yeah.
and play a song. This is what it sounds like, not as much. Where rock and roll is a very clean sound to me. Not a bad album by any means,
Oh no.
but much more of a still a singer songwriter just with a little bit of electric in it. Where this one actually sounds like you put four guys on stage and really have a great rock show.
Interesting. This is very interesting to me because when I listen to the album Rock and Roll, I think the guitar tones just scream out of the speaker. Now they are a bit cleaner
Yeah.
than Heat Wave, like you said. And I think there's a distinct difference between the guitar sounds of Rock and Roll and the guitar sounds of Heat Wave. I love both albums. You know, I don't really know if I'm at the point already where I could say I like the album Heat Wave more than the album Rock and Roll. I don't think that's really true. What are your thoughts on that?
For me, I can. And I
Okay.
like, again, like I said, I like rock and roll. This is not me like slapping rock and roll. There's some great tracks on rock and roll.
Yeah.
Um, but I think in general, when I want to go and put on a Ryan Adams album that I want to have a rock and roll experience with, Heatwave is going to be more of what I'm looking for. Where rock and roll is a little bit more singer songwriter with an electric guitar. I mean, that's just how I feel about that one. This one has more of the, this is more like you said, it's just kind of raw. It's not
Yeah.
mixed beautifully. It's not polished. It's a rock
Yeah.
album.
Yeah. It is definitely more raw. It's more grimy, like you said. It's more you could even it could be argued that you could even say it's a little more real, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
Now I could definitely see me getting to the point in the near future where I would basically put rock and roll and Heatwave at a tie.
Okay.
I could definitely see me doing that. But yeah, I mean, some of these things about the that I hear, that I don't know. I just think some of them could have been very easy fixes, which is a little frustrating for me. But again, there is something cool, about hey man, like we're having fun and we're getting this done, and hey, we're putting out this one, then we're putting out the next album, and like just stack them,
Yep.
pack them, and rack them. Get them out. They don't have to be perfect. So yeah, I do get that. Yeah.
Now, what do you think? Like, but as we say that, there's songs like Walls on here, which to me is absolutely phenomenal and is very different sounding than a lot of the stuff he's done in the past.
Yes.
With kind of that slinky, weird guitar tone and the vocal melody over top. Is that something
Yeah.
that stood out to you at all in this song? Like for me, it
Yeah,
immediately hit me.
and I've been noticing online too. A lot of people are talking about this song from this album,
Yeah,
um, which is kind of funny because it's seems pretty noticeably different than a lot of the other songs on the album.
I
So
agree.
the fact that that's the one people were talking about is like, well, wait. But a lot of people are talking about Mercy too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, dude. I mean, I know you're talking to me about Walls, but Mercy. I mean, Mercy gets stuck in my head so much. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Such a good song. Yeah, Walls has that different kind of sound that I
It
really
does.
like. And it really helps make this album not come off like a one trick pony, which again it
Mhm.
does not because of songs like Walls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, now for me, I marked down my favorite ones off here.
Yeah.
Track 4, Why, is one of my favorite songs on the album.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed the lyrics where he goes, I don't feel so good. Can someone take me home? And it just harkened me back to Life is Hell, or
Yeah.
Love is Hell, when he's singing on Can Anybody Take Me Home?
Does anybody want
Um,
to take me home? Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of the same thing, but now he's sick. Like someone's got to
Yeah.
take him home. Like it's
Yeah.
a little bit more raw, but that song will get stuck in my head real quick. Um, Walls, I've mentioned to myself, is one of my standouts, and then True Love, I really love too.
Yeah.
But you're gone, driving through the streets, but you're gone looking for it. Like again, that one will stick in my head too. So I mean, there's a lot of good songs in here because different ones will at different times stick in my head, and I'll go, I really like that. Because you're right, Mercies is fantastic. Like I said, it's easier for me to pick out the songs I don't love,
Yeah.
which for me right now it's Heatwave.
The
Um,
Blue Canoe?
I knew you were going to say that. I don't mind that song. You still don't get that song?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I
I
enjoy it because it sounds like a fun take on a drunken night. I mean,
Yeah.
I like his doubling and harmonizing on his own vocals on that one for the
Yeah.
chorus,
It's
where he's
fun.
kind of it's fun. It's about a guy trying to take over the world with a sword at the Blue Canoe.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a fun song. I mean, I don't have a problem with that one. Um, Now I am curious though. Fifth Avenue, you're the closer. How do you feel about the closing on this?
I do like that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for an album that starts this strong with so many punches in the face,
Mm-hmm.
I think to throw in that type of a song,
Yeah.
that's a little more subdued, a little more, I don't want to say melodic because it's all melodic, whether it's loud or
It
not,
is.
but I think it's a pretty strong closer. A song I don't think you specifically mentioned right in this section of the video, that stands out to me as a standout, would be "I'm Sorry."
I do love that song a lot. Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep. That's one of my lists, and I'm surprised. Do I not have that listed here? I don't. I don't have the dots next to it. I usually put dots, but I even have the lyrics on here where I put used to be funny. Now it only makes me sad to think of everything. Whoop, to think of everything that we could have had. Just great lyrics on that one. That one's a standout from Lyrical on that one for me. Because
yeah. And
yeah,
something I noticed with Ryan too, I may have mentioned this in the other video we did about all four, um, but whether he's rocking out,
mm-hmm.
or he's doing an album with a lot of songs like Star Sign or
Yeah,
Wednesdays or whatever, um, a lot of his lyrics really are about love. you
oh
know
yeah.
but it's from all different angles. It's not just the I love you, you love me, let's stare into each other's
No,
eyes.
I mean a lot of it I feel is very nostalgic, regretful.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of what could have been, could have been. So
Yeah.
And a lot of it seems to take on himself. I mean, I'm
Yes.
sorry, for example. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
saying you should apologize. It's saying I'm sorry. So I mean, yeah,
Well, and
this,
again, and you just made me think of this when you said that. Another part of his sheer brilliance to me is you don't really care or even notice necessarily when, like, Wednesdays, the first song, I'm sorry and I love you.
yeah.
But it's a completely different song than I'm sorry on Heatwave.
Oh yeah.
So I think with other artists, people would say, okay, well, you have a song called I'm Sorry, and then you have a song called I'm Sorry and I Love You. And there was not that many years apart. It'd be like, that's kind of lazy writing. No, not at all, because
No,
they're two totally different songs.
very different, very different. Plus, my God, I can't imagine how many songs he's actually written and wrote that aren't on albums.
Yeah.
He's got to be hitting the point where he's going, shit, I got one called that. I got one called that too. Like,
Yeah.
it's got to be hitting that point where it's like just doubling it up. Oh, well, you know.
Yeah. Can you imagine that Excel chart
Oh,
of
my
his
gosh.
song titles of stuff we've never even heard?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of that, as we go to wrap this up with Heatwave, did you hear the new song that was an outtake from, well, excerpt of the new song that was an outtake from the self-titled album that he
Yeah,
put on Instagram?
yeah, that was very good.
Ooh, man,
Very good. Yep.
it sounds like he was saying on there that there's about 20 songs that were recorded during those sessions that weren't released and weren't leaked.
Man, I'm
So,
telling you, it's insane the amount of work he has to have just laying around. It's crazy.
yeah. And again, songs like, I think this you'll appreciate this. The two songs that I've been hardest on him about for his entire career, and I can't say I hate either of them. You know what the one
uh,
is?
Halloween Head is one.
Halloween Head, and now the Blue Canoe. But both of those, I'm not sitting here saying that I hate them at all. It's just I kind of have to be in the right mood for it. I would
Yeah.
never even dream of skipping a song on a Ryan Adams album, a Whiskey Town album, ever, ever. And even as I said, point those two songs out, a bit tongue in cheek, I still don't even think I would skip them though.
Yeah.
you
No,
know,
I think they're both fun. I can enjoy both of those songs.
yeah,
I think to me, I would prefer Halloween Head over Magic. I never loved Magic all that much.
really,
Yeah, I mean that one is a little bouncy. I don't know, but again, not that I dislike it. It's just
yeah,
if I were to have to throw out my least favorite, it might be that one. But I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to even pick because they're all
yeah,
fun. I mean, when they're
yeah.
bad, they're fun bad. It's. But yeah, I mean,
Well,
for me, this album has been. This is a pretty solid album. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of complaints. I have a lot of songs I really enjoy on here. Um, so I mean, I'm glad to hear it stepped up for you a little bit.
oh, I mean, well, and it's so hard to rank these four new ones because they're great
Yeah.
in different ways for different reasons. And again, we haven't even done the deep dive on the next three yet, but
Yep.
something has to come in number four. I can sit here and tell you right now, it ain't going to be Heatwave for me. I you know what? This may change because we have to deep dive on the last three, but I'm gonna play my hand a little bit right now to give a spoiler alert. I think the order that you gave on the initial video when we did an overall view of the
Mm-hmm.
new four albums is exactly what my order is going to end up being.
Yeah.
So you remember you had Heatwave at number two.
Yeah.
So as I'm feeling now, and I have listened to the other ones not over and over again, but I've listened to them several times, obviously, since they came out. But
Mm-hmm.
my instinct, we'll see how it goes. But my instinct says that my order is going to end up being the same as what your initial order was, and that Heatwave is going to be number two above Sword and Stone.
I don't believe that.
No.
Now, I
Okay.
think by the time you get through Sword and Stone, you're going to be in love with that.
Okay.
I think that leans a little bit closer to your stylings. There's going to be less stuff that's going to drive you nuts in the control room.
Yeah, true.
You're not going to be back there going, "Damn, I wish you would have cut or raised." Or that's going to be a little bit more polished, and I think it's going to make you feel a little better.
I think. Well, you're right, but here's why. Here's why I think I might end up having Heatwave at number two after all said and done, because, and again, I haven't done the deep dive on Sword and Stone yet, but
Mm-hmm.
I think overall the songwriting on Heatwave is a little better.
I enjoy it, so I'm good. It'd be great
Yeah.
if that's the case and it ends up number two for you.
Yeah.
But I would say Sword and Stone is what I've spent the least amount of time with so far. There's definitely some great tracks on that. So yeah, I'm a little curious when I dig into it what it's going to do to me, but
No doubt. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm curious.
So you had Sword and Stone at number 3 when you did your
Yeah.
ranking, and I
Yep.
had it at number 2. Okay. Um, Now I had 1985 at number 3 because I had put Heatwave at 4 foolishly. So, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But speaking of 1985, now anything else you wanted to add about Heatwave before we wrap up?
No, I think that we pretty much covered it. Like I said, it's a very solid album. I'm very happy with it. Um, if this would have come out with the first 4, I would have had this right in the middle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, this is it's great, great album.
Well, and what might be fun for us to do after we get through all this, we might want to do a ranking of the 8,
Yeah.
the Chris, Romeo and Juliet,
Yep.
FM Devolver, and then these 4 and do a full. That might be fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. So folks, you know where this is going. Put in the comments your thoughts on Heatwave. If you're playing along with us at home, your next assignment is to listen to the album 1985. Oh my gosh, it's got 29 songs. How am I going to have time to listen to? Don't worry, the whole album's like 35 minutes long.
Yep.
It's shorter than this one probably. So, but yeah, weigh in on Heatwave. We're having so much fun doing the deep dive. The DRA Army. This is where you need to be on YouTube for all things Ryan Adams. So for, as always, Brad, I am your friend Keith. This is the KMB Music Den. Let us know your thoughts on Heatwave. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Please like this video, share it on social media, smash the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel. Lots of stuff coming up. Already some new releases coming out in January that we're looking forward to reviewing. So the new year's starting off well already. So thank you so much for listening. Thanks for the support. The views keep coming. The subscribers keep coming. It's no fun without you guys. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And Brad, thanks for your time. And I think that was a great discussion on Heatwave, and I'm looking forward to diving into 1985.
All right. Sounds good. I'm looking forward as well.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon. And folks, thanks for watching. We appreciate you more than you could ever know. Take care.